No, we sold worldwide about 100 million records, which isn't nothing. You know, the rock and rollers, they sell that in 2 days. But I enjoy it.
Everyone remembers Perry Como as the kindest, coziest guy.
I enjoyed Mexico. I enjoyed Paris, New York last year.
Everyone on TV, always ready with a smile and a soft song. He was Mr. C, the man in the cardigan. But what if I told you that the perfect image you know was hiding a darker truth? What if I told you he called his own biggest hits crap, refused to accept awards for selling millions of records, and had a shocking case of road rage that would make your jaw drop? And the story of his final days is even more painful. His children actually went to court over his estate while he was dying. Today, we're going to rewatch a famous 14-second clip from 1957 that seemed to prove he was a perfect gentleman, but we're going to look closer. That one jump into a pool wasn't just about being a nice guy. It was about control, something he felt he rarely had in his own life. A life that started in a tiny coal mining town with nothing but poverty and big dreams. Perry Como was born Pierino Ronald Como on May 18, 1912, in a little place called Canonsburg, Pennsylvania, just a short drive from Pittsburgh. His parents, Pietro and Luciana, had arrived from Italy only 2 years earlier, in 1910. Imagine a house where 13 children eventually grew up. Perry was the 7th one, right in the middle. His father worked back-breaking shifts at a tin plate factory, earning just $175 a month, which was barely enough to keep that huge family fed. They spoke only Italian at home, so when little Perry started school at age 6, he had to learn English from scratch, which was a tough start. But even though they were poor, the house was full of music and a strong Catholic faith. When Perry turned 10 in 1922, he got his first job at a barber shop owned by a man named Steve Fragapane. His pay was a meager 50 cents a week. He had to wake up early to light the wood stove before school, run to class, and then come back to sweep floors and polish mirrors. He was so small he had to stand on a wooden box just to reach the client's hair. But by age 13, in 1925, he was so good that he had his own chair and was cutting hair like a real professional. That money was desperately needed back home. His love for music started way, way earlier, around age 3, when his dad bought a used organ for only $3. Even when they had to buy groceries on credit, they found room for that organ. Perry spent hours teaching himself melodies just by listening. His father, who loved to sing, made sure all his kids were surrounded by music. And Perry took to it the most seriously. He taught himself the guitar, the trombone, and more, all without a single formal music lesson. But he wasn't perfect. In his teen years, Perry lost an entire week's wages playing dice. He was so ashamed and felt so horrible about losing that important money that he locked himself in his room, terrified to face his parents. When he finally confessed to his father, he braced himself for a huge explosion of anger. But his dad said something gentle that Perry carried with him forever. You're allowed to make a mistake. Just don't do worse than this. That moment of forgiveness taught Perry everything about being a decent man. While still cutting hair, Perry also played trombone in the local Canonsburg Italian band, performing at weddings and parades. The band was led by Stan Vinton, whose son, Bobby Vinton, would also become a famous singer years later. Perry was a star right there in the barber shop, earning the nickname the Singing Barber because he always crooned love songs while giving a shave. Grooms would specially request him to sing, and his tips would jump by $20 or $30, huge money back then. By age 14 in 1926, he was making $125 a week, which is over $2,000 today, because a local cafe owner had given him space for his own barber shop. His shop was so popular because of his singing that he had to hire 2 other barbers just to handle the long lines. Then something serious changed everything. His father, Petro, developed a severe heart condition and couldn't work anymore. Suddenly, Perry and his brothers became the main providers for the huge family. Perry used his barber money to pay for rent, food, and even music lessons for his younger brothers and sisters. Despite all that responsibility, he never stopped singing, inspired by the great Bing Crosby. People loved his easy, warm voice, and local clubs started hiring him to perform for $5 or $10 a show. Great money for a teenager. In 1929, he met the love of his life, Rizelle Bova. He was 17 and she was 16. During their first meeting, he sang the song More Than You Know while staring right into her eyes. They fell in love, but Perry didn't rush into marriage. He waited 4 years because he needed to make absolutely sure his barber business was stable enough to support a family. They finally married on July 31, 1933. He was 21, she was 20, and they would remain married for an incredible 68 years.
Right after the wedding, during a vacation in Cleveland, a band leader named Freddie Carlone heard Perry sing and offered him a job. The problem? The pay was only $28 a week, a shocking drop from the $125 he was making as a barber. Perry said no. He thought giving up his successful business for a risky music career was foolish. Even when Carlone called again, he refused. But his friends and Roselle kept pushing him, telling him he had to try. Finally, Carlone warned Perry he was about to give the job to someone else. Roselle told Perry she would be disappointed in him forever if he passed it up. That was the final push. Perry closed his barbershop in August 1933, less than 24 hours before he would have said no for good. The start was brutal. Perry and Roselle could barely survive on $28 a week, and she couldn't even travel with him at first. But his father's words kept him going. You'll never know if you don't try. In 1936, a major blow hit him. During a recording session, a Decca Records executive walked in and loudly demanded, "Get rid of that kid." He thought Perry sounded too much like Bing Crosby, who was already Decca's biggest star. Perry said it felt like a knife stab in his chest. But Ted Williams, the band leader, stood up for him, saying that if Perry wasn't singing, there would be no recording at all. That loyalty saved his career, even though the Crosby copy label haunted him for years. Perry later admitted he was copying him. Then, a big radio station, WGN, almost canceled the band's broadcasts because they said Perry's vocals were unclear and the audience couldn't understand the lyrics. Ted Williams played the recordings back, and Perry realized it was true. This moment crushed him, but Williams told him to stop using vocal tricks and just sing honestly, straight from his heart. That advice changed everything. Perry started developing the smooth, effortless, natural voice that became his famous style. But the life of constant touring was exhausting. In 1940, his wife was giving birth to their first child, Bronnie, and Perry left right in the middle of a live show to be with her. The band was furious, and he almost got fired, but Perry never regretted it. Family always came first. By 1942, the nonstop travel completely wore him out, and when World War II broke out and Williams joined the Army, the band broke up. Perry was so tired he decided to go home to Canonsburg. He even started negotiating a new lease for a barber shop. He was ready to quit music for good. He told Roselle, but she wouldn't let him. She pushed him to keep going. He later joked, "If it wasn't for her, I'd have the best barber shop in town." Then something completely unexpected happened. The General Arts Corporation reached out with a huge offer. They wanted him to do his own solo radio show for $100 a week and sign a major recording deal with RCA Victor. On March 12, 1943, he did his first solo broadcast on CBS. RCA was desperate for someone to compete with Frank Sinatra and Bing Crosby, and they hoped Perry could be that voice. But the start was rocky. His first solo song, Goodbye Sue, failed. It didn't even have music backing him because of a musician's strike, and people just didn't connect with only vocals. He was so discouraged, he nearly went back to cutting hair for good. But in 1945, everything changed forever. On July 3, 1945, he recorded a song called Till the End of Time, which was based on a piece by the famous composer Chopin. The record came out on July 30th and shot onto the Billboard charts by August 9th. It was a monster hit, staying at #1 for 10 weeks and selling over 2 million copies. It was his first #1 hit and his first record to sell over 1 million. At the exact same time, another of his songs, If I Loved You, was also selling over 1 million copies. This made him the first pop singer in history to have 2 songs selling over 2 million copies simultaneously. People said the success of Till the End of Time had something to do with the sad mood in America after President Roosevelt had passed away. People were looking for comfort, and Perry's gentle voice was exactly what they needed. Hollywood came calling next, and MGM signed him to a 7-year movie deal. He acted in films like Something for the Boys and Dollface, but he hated Hollywood. One day, during a birthday party for the incredibly powerful studio boss Louis B. Mayer, he was told to sing Happy Birthday in front of all the biggest stars. He felt like a trained monkey. After the song, he looked Mayer right in the eye and called him an SOB right there in front of all the guests. His contract was ended immediately after that. Perry later admitted he planned the whole thing. He hated the Hollywood system and wanted out. He said walking away from movies felt like finally being free. He never looked back. But even in music, he wasn't always happy. Perry became famous for absolutely hating the songs he was forced to record, once saying some of them were simply crap. People at recording sessions noticed he looked miserable, like he'd just eaten something sour. He'd record his part in 1 or 2 quick takes and immediately walk out. He wanted to sing classics, Broadway tunes, not silly pop tunes. In 1961, he released an album of the songs he truly loved, by request, but it barely sold anything. Meanwhile, RCA Victor continued to sell millions of his other records. They averaged 4 million Como records a year, and in 1946 alone, they sold 4 million in a single week.
In a 1998 interview, Perry finally opened up saying, "Those songs paid for my house and put my kids through college, so I can't complain too much. But if I had my way, I'd have spent my whole career singing the Great American Songbook instead of crooning about hot diggity dogs." He found a more comfortable home in radio. On December 11, 1944, he started hosting a 15-minute show called the Chesterfield Supper Club every weeknight at 7 p.m. At first, even the advertising agency didn't want Perry, but a producer fought for him and got him the job just a week before it aired. Then, on Christmas Eve, 1948, NBC decided to try something new. They put cameras in the radio studio and aired the show on television. It was only supposed to be a 3-Friday test run, but it was so popular they kept going. By September 8, 1949, the show became a regular TV program. There he was now a TV star, even though he felt awkward on camera at first. To calm his nerves, he would imagine he was simply talking to his family in his own living room. In 1950, he moved to CBS, and the show became The Perry Como Show. It eventually became a full hour, and by the 1956-1957 season, his show was the only NBC show in the Nielsen Top 10 ratings. He won 5 Emmy Awards in a row from 1955 to 1959, and his show was one of the first ever to air in color. He had a friendly ratings rivalry with Jackie Gleason, and every week the winner would call the other to joke about the ratings. On March 14, 1958, his song, Catch a Falling Star, became the very first song to ever get a gold record from the RIAA for selling over 1 million copies. And yet, Perry hated that song too. During the live award ceremony, the announcer messed up and called it Chase a Falling Star. Perry then performed a funny, half-joking version of the song to show everyone how much he disliked it. Even though he won a Grammy for it later that year, he never changed his mind. He still wanted to be a barber more than a pop star. He once said that being a star wasn't something he dreamed about, it was just something that happened to him. In 1955, NBC offered him a huge 12-year contract. Then, in 1959, Kraft Foods gave him an even bigger offer, $25 million to make 66 hour-long color TV shows over 2 years, plus a 10-year deal as their spokesperson. He became the highest-paid man on television with his own production company called Roncom, named after his son, Ronnie. Out of that $25 million, he had to pay all the production costs, but he kept whatever was left over. Even with all that money, Perry often felt trapped. He once told Time magazine, "Frankly, I don't know a thing about the deal, but I've met the president of Kraft, and he seems a hell of a nice guy." His shows were loved around the world and broadcast in more than a dozen countries. He even won a prestigious Peabody Award for his charm and for never acting fake. He was always polite and absolutely family-friendly, often refusing scripts he thought weren't appropriate for children.
His Christmas specials were legendary and loved worldwide. In 1958, a song called Magic Moments, which was the B-side to Catch a Falling Star, became a huge surprise hit in the UK, staying at #1 for 8 weeks, even though it only reached #4 in the US. What was strange was that one song was a giant hit in the US and the other was a giant hit in the UK. Even though he had more than 10 records that sold over 1 million copies each, he didn't want most of his hits certified as gold. He just didn't care about the fame. Now let's talk about those 14 seconds. On March 16, 1957, during a live episode of The Perry Como Show, the Olympic swimmer Esther Williams was performing in a specially built swimming pool on the stage. While swimming, she had a wardrobe malfunction. The entire show was live and the whole country was watching. Instead of panicking, Perry, at the very end of the show, simply walked up to the camera, smiled his gentle smile, said, "Good night, folks," and without skipping a beat, he jumped fully clothed into the pool right after her. This incredible act of grace and chivalry immediately became one of the most famous moments in TV history. Everyone talked about it for years, praising him as the ultimate gentleman who saved the day and made a nervous moment into a joke. But this wasn't just about being polite. This was Perry Como, the man who felt like he was living in a golden cage because of his $25 million contract, showing that he was still the guy in control of his own moment. He was saying, "I choose what happens on my show," and he chose to be the hero, not the stiff TV star. That single act of playful self-sacrifice defined his image forever. In 1953, Perry made a huge move and ended his weekly show. Even though he had made $25 million just a few years earlier, he wanted more time with his family. From then on, he only did monthly specials, sometimes skipping months entirely. He wanted to see his children grow up. In 1980, he recorded his Christmas special in Jerusalem, singing Ave Maria outside a real church.
He refused to sing that beautiful song anywhere that didn't feel sacred to him. He believed some songs were too holy to be sung just for TV ratings. In 1970, he released the song It's Impossible, and it became a worldwide hit, his first top 10 song in years, proving he could still compete with the modern music of the day. He even covered songs by the Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel on the album he made around it. That same year, he returned to Las Vegas, having not performed live since 1944. At the International Hotel, he earned an unbelievable $125,000 a week, far more than his father made in a lifetime. He brought his own brand of clean, gentle entertainment to the Vegas stage. In the 1980s, he turned down massive offers so he could stay home. He said fame had taken him away from his kids during their most important years, and he wasn't going to make that mistake again. He was rich enough to say no. Perry Como was just 21 when he married Roselle Bellino, who was only 19. Their love lasted 65 years until Roselle passed away in 1998 at age 84. After their son Ronnie was born, they couldn't have more children, so they adopted their daughter Terry and son David. Even though they had one of the most stable marriages in show business, Perry often carried a heavy guilt. He admitted that being famous made him miss the real moments of life. He once confessed that life on the road was terrible for raising children, and after taking Roselle and baby Ronnie on early tours, he stopped and made his family his anchor. Fame gave him money, but it took away time. When Roselle died, Perry was utterly heartbroken. People always saw Perry as the calmest, most laid-back man on television, but off-screen that was not always true. His music director, Mitchell Ayers, who worked with him for 15 years, said Perry could lose his temper just like anyone else. And it wasn't just occasional. Behind the wheel, he was famous for shouting at drivers who cut him off, a kind of road rage that shocked fans who believed he was always easygoing. The truth was that Perry got angry too. He just hid it better than most. Despite earning an estimated $40 million over his career, Perry chose a very simple life in Florida. He sold over 50 million records and won 5 Emmys, but he didn't care about being flashy. Locals often saw him grocery shopping like any other retiree, and most didn't even recognize him. He died on May 12, 2001, at age 88, sitting in his favorite chair.
His daughter said that just the day before, they had shared ice cream, and he had been smiling. Perry had been battling Alzheimer's disease for about 2 years, and after he gave up golf, it felt like a part of his soul had faded. The most heartbreaking part of his final years, though, was the legal battle that erupted between his children. His daughter Terry and his son Ronald couldn't agree on how to follow his living will. The dispute went to court in 2000 while Perry was still alive but already very sick. It was a painful legal fight that broke the family apart, a tragic end for a man who always put his family first. When his estate was finally settled, people were shocked by the numbers. His Florida mansion sold for over $3.2 million, which is worth over $17 million today. He had earned more money than anyone realized, but he never, ever bragged about it. He just kept singing. Perry Como was a man of contradictions, the singing barber who became a global star, the gentle host who ruined his Hollywood career just to get out, the man who was the highest-paid star on TV but felt trapped in a golden cage and hated his biggest hits. He taught us that the quiet ones often have the loudest inner struggles, and that sometimes the greatest act of control is choosing to be the kind person even when you're boiling on the inside. He refused to accept awards, turned down fame, and chose his family over fortunes. In the end, what made Perry Como a legend wasn't just his smooth voice or his famous pool jump, but his unwavering commitment to his own simple values, even when the pressure of being a star was pushing him to be something else. If you were surprised by the true story behind Perry Como's famous reputation, give this video a like. Don't forget to share this story with a friend who loves classic Hollywood tales. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the lives of the biggest legends in history.